that respect, now it starts becoming something that's more personal and something that we can relate to more. When I studied apocalyptic literature in my graduate studies, one of the things that I learned about it and that I came away with is that each and every one of us experience the end time. In other words, we breathe our last breath and time and space ends for us as we know it in this life. We all have an end time. But what I want us to focus on, and I believe this is what the gospel writer is saying as well, is let's not focus so much on what's going to happen at the end when we're taking our last breath, but what are we doing with ourselves between the beginning and the end? How are you living your life? And this is the good news that I gleaned from this passage this week. Because quite frankly, when I read it, I thought, every Christmas, every Advent, I've got to preach from this text. This is the way it starts out every year. What can I learn from it this time? And this is what I've learned and I'm very excited about. The question for me is this: what are we going to do with our life between the first breath and the last breath? A woman named Claudia got cancer. And while she was taking her chemotherapy, she went outside one day, and the wind was blowing, and she just ran her fingers through her hair, and it fell out of her head. All of it. She just stood there and just experienced all of her hair leaving her head. And it just came like tumbleweed in the desert ground. She wept for the loss. Then one day, she looked at a nest that some birds were making in the portal of her house, and she saw her hair in that nest. And what she was able to glean from that is during her chemotherapy, another creature took something that she lost and was creating a nest which would do what? Nurture new life. She said it didn't cure her, but it helped her to get through what she was going through. Life is a powerful force. You cannot kill life. You cannot. Life cannot die. Life is always going. Even when something leaves us and it seems to have died, something takes it and resurrects it once again into something that is giving life. Life cannot die. Another example that I want to share with you that helped me to understand the apocalyptic literature and being awake and answering the question, how do we choose to live, comes from a person that many of you may have already heard about. If you haven't, go online and look up Randy Pausch. That's Pausch. Randy Pausch. A young man, 3 children, pancreatic cancer, died. Did everything he could to try to beat the cancer. Cancer won. So he gave what he called the last lecture, his last lecture. And this comes from an assignment that often we get in college, right? If this was the last thing you had to say to everyone around you, what would it be? This was your last chance. What is it that you would want to communicate about who you are and about life? He said, but in his particular case, the elephant in the room was the fact that he was indeed dying. So they had his last lecture at a big auditorium there on the college campus that would seat 400 or 500 people. He was expecting maybe 50 to 100 people to come, maybe some of his colleagues, maybe a few students. He was not prepared for what he was about to experience. The place was standing room only. And he gave his last lecture. I want to share with you some of the things that he says. And you can go on YouTube. The whole lecture is there. Excerpts of the lecture is there. You can go on YouTube, look it up, write in Randy Pausch, Pausch. The first thing he says is, I am dying, and it stinks. He's not celebrating cancer. He's not celebrating the fact that he's not going to be around to be with his wife and children and experience more of life. He acknowledges that it stinks, but he says, I choose not to be an object of pity. And I think the key word there is choose. He chooses not to be an object of pity. And then on the Oprah show, after he says this, he gets down on the floor and he does push-ups. And he does them with one hand, one arm. He says, I'm stronger and more fit than many of you in the audience right now, but I'm dying. But I choose not to be a person to be pitied. In fact, I do the opposite. I choose to live. He says that this is not a talk about death, but rather a lecture about life. And then he shares some of the things that he has learned in his life. One of the things that I like that he said is experience is what you get when you don't get what you want. I think that's very wise, isn't it? That's experience. We set out for one thing thinking this is the way it's going to turn out. It turns out totally different. And then we get that incredible experience. It helps us to grow and evolve. He also says this. I think it's very, very clever and very profound. The brick walls that we encounter in life are put there to see how badly we want what we want. So you can interpret those brick walls in one of two ways. You can look at it this way, that, well, there we go again. Every time I try to achieve something, get something I want, there's that brick wall. Oh, well, oh, hum, I guess I'll just quit and go look for another dream or goal to pursue. No. For him, he says, that brick wall is put there not as punishment, not as discouragement, but to see how badly it is you want what you want. What are you willing to do? And I'm thinking, what a wonderful thing for us as individuals in this congregation and wherever we are in our lives, right here and now, to think about, okay, what is preventing you from becoming and being that person that you've been wanting to become? And what are your frustrations? Are you looking at that brick wall as something to be a hindrance to you, or something to just to prove to you how badly you want to become the person and do the things that you feel called to do? Look at us as a congregation. We, like everybody else in the nation and the world, as it seems, are hitting some financial hard times. Are we going to see this as yet another brick wall to keep us from becoming what we want to become as a church? Or can we see this as an opportunity to see how badly we want to be who we feel called to be and what we want to do in the world around us? Another thing that he says is his parents let him express his creativity. In his bedroom, he was allowed to paint and draw whatever he wanted to paint and draw on his walls. They encouraged creativity. I want you to encourage creativity in the little ones around you. There's always enough paint to cover up the wall. A 2-year-old with a crayon, oh dear. Just don't let them get in the living room and the formal dining room, right?